Maybe if I just ask you, we're away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa. I'm one of the coordinators from the Capricorn Coast on Queensland. And here tonight, I'm here to interview a very special man who's always got a smile on his face and does incredible stuff. So I'm going to introduce you to Darren. Darren, can you tell us about your background and how long you've been aware of the true nature of the world?
Wonderful. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Teresa. My background is a bit of a mixed bag, but I've worked in the corporate world for a while, or quite a long time, most of my career. But I've also worked in mining, done labouring, done fencing, done all sorts of unusual things. For me, I probably spent the greater part of my life feeling that something wasn't quite right with the world, but never took the time to look into it, never really thought beyond. Maybe it was just people making mistakes. And I recognised that there was corruption in government, but couldn't believe that the whole system would be corrupt. And people feel like me and think like me and going to be trying to do the right thing. But 2020 opened my eyes to the truth. And I couldn't begin to explain how or why I recognised the lie from the outset. But for some reason, it was just clear and obvious to me when they started telling us about this horrific disease that it was all a lie. Mm. And that was the beginning of me diving into the research and comprehending what was truly going on. Initially, you go through all the emotions, I guess, as you start to wake up. And I went through the anger stage, and I went through the fear stage, and I went through the hopeless. Well, maybe not. Maybe I never felt hopeless, but it was always, it seems like such an insurmountable challenge that we face. I initially, when I sort of realised the extent of the fraud, particularly with government and the corporations, and when things started to come into view for me, particularly the pedophilia and the other things that we've learned about in regards to the way the whole world is run, I made a call. I decided that I was no longer going to support it. It was a moral choice for me, and I said, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And I stopped registering my automobiles, and I stopped using the license, and eventually I returned the license. And I sort of did all that asked about because I didn't have any knowledge of law or any of those sorts of things. I just knew it was wrong, and I said no. And I was pretty fortunate. I never put a mask on. I continued to go to work. I was lucky where I was working, I guess, but I didn't get affected at all by lockdowns or any of those sorts of things. Mm. I learned enough of the statutes to be able to push back if someone said I needed to put a mask on and that sort of thing. And I travelled around, so I didn't let the changes affect me at all in terms of where I went and what I did. And I got away with that for probably 13 months, maybe 14 months before I had my first unwanted interaction. And that's when I sort of had to dive in and work out, okay, well, what is the law really? How does this all work? And that was the beginning of going down the rabbit holes and all the rest of it. But for me, 2020, absolutely. I'm new to all of this. And to be honest, I'm in awe of the people who have been at it a lot longer. Obviously, I've met many people that have all of their lives known about the state of the world and what's going on. I'm in awe of them. I cannot, for the life of me, comprehend how you could know all of this and be thought of as nuts for such a long period of time. So the trailblazers are amazing.
Agreed. They are absolutely amazing. I agree. And I can imagine anyone listening to you talk right now a lot of people will be able to relate on their own journey at the same time. I'm sitting here nodding my head thinking, yes, yes, yes. So I think that's fantastic that you can recognize that shift and that you had the integrity to do something about it. That's not everybody managed to do that. So we appreciate you, of course. So Darren, can you tell us what your role is within the assemblies?
Certainly. So I started out as the coordinator for Queensland, and the role has expanded a little bit. But as coordinator for Queensland, early days it was a very small team. We announced the assemblies publicly on the 12th of January 2024. And we did that by public notices in pretty much any paper that would accept our notice. Most of them wouldn't, of course. But that was done via public notice. And initially we kickstarted as individual states. So there were 7 states on Terras Australis. We thought that at the time that was the right thing to do, and mirroring the legacy system, it would be easier for us to address the challenges at state level. And early days, it was a little bit of a challenge for us. Obviously, none of us have ever built a nation before or formed an assembly movement before. So it was all brand new. And we recognised that only a few months ago, really. I mean, we've had people telling us the whole time, but we only really recognised recently that it made more sense to break down that state structure and go to a national assembly. So when we announced that, the roles have changed a little bit, but only from the point of view that we have a lot more collaboration now. So it was the challenge when we had the separate states, each of the states doing their own thing. And we tried hard to work together, but it just wasn't structured that way. And for whatever reason, it made it a little bit more challenging. So now that we've gone to the National Assembly, it's a lot more structured in the way that we're approaching things and a lot more collaborative. And the wonderful thing about that is that we're also able then to share the load instead of a small group of people doing everything. And at the same time, it's also allowed the rest of the community, the assembly community, to come together as well. And we're finding even in the short time, it's been a matter of a month or so since we announced that we were going to do the National Assembly, and we've had that many people put their hand up to help and been able to help slot people into places that need attention. And yeah, it's far more enjoyable. It's wonderful to see people stepping forward and getting involved and bringing their passion to the table. It's lovely.
It's exciting times.
Absolutely.
And I noticed that you also forgot to mention that the articles that you've been writing for the Terras Australis, which, they've been fantastic and certainly help educate people as well. So the newspaper, I've got one here, 3rd edition.
Well done.
And, all of the things that you're creating and putting together certainly help in that space as well, with the other way showers that are in the team. So as you said, there's no instruction box on how to build a nation. So
or how to create a paper either.
I know. Talk about building the plane in the air. My gosh.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to then segue into, well, what has the highlight been on your assembly journey so far? I mean, of all the things you've been doing, particularly in the last 12 months, there's just so many. What would be the highlight?
It absolutely boils down to the people. And there are so many phenomenal people within this assembly initiative. And really that was brought to bear for me when we did the tour around the country. So Mookie, it was Mookie and Judgy, husband and wife team, that kickstarted this initiative here on Terras Australis. And I had the absolute joy to be able to travel around the country with Mookie for 3 months. And we did presentations in lots of small towns and big cities. And we got to meet hundreds and hundreds of just the most wonderful, wonderful people. They opened their homes to us, gave us places to stay. They fed us. They took care of us. They pulled people together. And, we had meetings in all sorts of places, in people's garages, in community halls, in churches, in all sorts of buildings. And I must say that was probably one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. You know, the absolute love that people bring to those assembly meetings. And you know, this initiative is about love. It's all based on, you know, we're doing this because we care about our fellow men. And to be able to share that space with people who are like-minded, as loving as they are, and driven to do something wonderful for their fellow men, it's just beautiful. So without a doubt, that tour is a standout for me.
I would agree. And it was really clear when you and Mookie were walking around and doing the tour that both of you were coming from that heart space, you know, and very community minded. So what was the catalyst for the tour? I mean, what did you hope to achieve?
The tour kicked off, I think it was June, when we hopped in the automobile and began the travel.
Mm-hmm.
So by that stage, we're sort of 5 months in after announcing the assemblies. And there was a lot of good stuff happening, but it wasn't, we didn't sort of have a loud splash when we launched the assemblies. It was quiet because it's a ground up initiative. And we are challenged with communicating, and communication by far is our biggest challenge. And I think Mookie recognised that we really needed to get out in front of people and be able to spread the message. And we couldn't think of another way at the time. So yeah, I mean, he was the catalyst for it. I'm not sure of all the details behind it, but it was all about, you know, we just got to get the message out to people, and we're struggling to do that. Social media is not a good, successful platform for us. So, and it was a little bit clunky, probably. You know, we sort of hopped in the automobile and headed off, and we knew where we were going for the first meeting, but we hadn't organised anything after that. So it was we were relying on the people to you know, organise stuff and tell us where they wanted us to be, and it was yeah, it was just by the seat of our pants, more or less. But again, you know, people saw the benefit in it and they made it happen, and that's part of why it was just so wonderful, because, you know, people were hungry for I'd say some help. It's not leadership, you know, we're not offering leadership. We're sure we're standing out front, we're being the faces of this initiative, but we will guide and we will assist and we will help you stand your assemblies. But it's not about, you know, don't follow Darren, he doesn't know everything. And so that was wonderful, you know, the fact that people were able to do that. In truth, that's probably what we would need to do better next time, is be a little bit more organised and pre-plan the events and have a pre-planned calendar and do all those sorts of things. Not that I'm promising a next time. But I think there's value in doing this again over and over and over. But it's probably not Mookie and Darren that would do it. It's you know, I know Ben and Kim on Victoria are travelling around Victoria at the moment, doing you know, kickstarting new assemblies and sharing the word around there, and that's wonderful. And it'd be lovely if they had the ability to continue and travel around the rest of the country and bring that word out. And then there are other people that are just as passionate, just as knowledgeable, that you know, want to help people to get standing and get this thing going.
Absolutely. Do you think the tour met the expectations? I mean, what happened as a direct result of that tour?
Great question. So the highlight of the tour, and the whole tour was just phenomenal. But for me, the thing that I really loved was everywhere we went, we sparked a little brush fire. And, you know, because it wasn't about you're joining an initiative that has a top-down thing, so we're going to have all these structured meetings and do all this sort of stuff. It meant we walked in, we did the presentation, told people where they can get the information. If they need help, reach out and we'll help you. And then we left. And there's good side to that and there's bad side to that. But the people that were really passionate and could see the benefit have continued to develop their assemblies. And Queensland's a good example. I can speak to Queensland. So we spent the best part of 4 weeks travelling up and down Queensland. And at the end of that, we had, initially it was 17, it grew to 19 local assemblies formed. And like yourself, being one of those coordinators that saw the benefit and has stepped forward and making it happen. So it was easy to bring those people together, and those local coordinators meet once a week and are in constant communication and helping each other. And like every initiative and everything you do in business and everywhere else, some places that's working better than others, because it's reliant on the passion of the coordinator and also how much time they have available and where they are, and even just things like getting halls to hold the meetings in. We kickstarted having our Queensland meetings in Maleny, and we were using a building initially that the lady that was letting us use it stopped leasing the building, so we had to find somewhere else, and we ended up at an RSL, and that was going okay for a while, and then they worked out what we were doing, and they gave us the flick, and we had to go and find another building and all these sorts of things. So that's one of the challenges, and in smaller communities that can be even more challenging, of course. So yeah, there's lots of challenges with what we are doing and what you are doing, and it just depends on the location and the people that are driving it, how much we can, or how many people come forward in a local assembly to help bring it forward.
I would agree. And it really comes down to self-governance. Does the community want to step up or not? Because it was quite clear on the tour that you weren't there to save anyone. You were there to offer suggestions and resources and ideas to collaborate, but it was actually up to local assemblies to get themselves organised. Yeah. And for our little region, when we don't have one coordinator, we've got a little team here, and we meet fortnightly now, and it's just gone from strength to strength. But I really like the fact that we have that support of all the other local assemblies. There's so many popping up, really amazing people. So, and we appreciate the guidance that you've been given, and the hours. There's so many hours that you've put in towards creating things. So I think it's pretty amazing. So my next question would actually be, what do you see the roles of the assemblies in the short to medium term coming from here?
Yeah, great question again, Teresa, and thank you. In terms of next steps, it's really about continuing to grow the participation in the assemblies. But for me, the way I describe the assemblies is that the General Assembly is all of the people, and that includes the Australian citizens. It's not just about what the reconveyed state nationals are doing. So everybody can come to the meetings and everybody gets to have a say. But the General Assembly is all about expressing the people's collective will. So there's nothing more powerful than the collective will of the people. And the idea is that if a proposal gets put forward to the people at a General Assembly and there's a vote on that idea, then that idea then has the collective will of the people. And that will is either, yes, we're going to implement that idea, or no, we're going to do away with it. But once the collective will has been expressed, that becomes the law. So the Assembly's role in the short to medium term will be to express the will of the people and then to implement the will of the people. And I see that phase one of that is to start putting a stop to the harms that have been caused by our service providers. And we've come up with a draft list of things that's 3 or 4 pages long. And that's just the headings of the harms that are being caused. But every one of those needs to be addressed. We had February 2022, we had massive protests occurring all around the country. And one of those protests was when lots of very cranky people, and the numbers vary, but it was anywhere between 1 and 3 million people that were cranky enough with the government to actually hop in their automobiles and travel to Canberra. And some of those people I've met that travelled, it was a 4,000 kilometre travel for them. And the response from the government was to censor it, so it was kept out of the news, was to ignore the people, and it was to turn weapons on the people. And I've met dozens of people who were there who received very serious burns under their clothing from the weapons that we used. So two things from that. One is that there's wasting our time petitioning or protesting or what in the legal system is termed begging the government and the rulers to take any notice of us. So we have to take a different action. And in my mind, that action is at the local assembly level, where the real power is. That's the real strength of our initiative. And that's dealing with the men and women who are actually causing the harms. So once the will of the people is expressed, we're going to go into all of the chemists in the local area and we're going to serve them with a notice of liability or a cease and desist or whatever the assembly decides. But here's the list of all of the harms that you are causing or the actions you are taking that are causing harm. And here's proof of all of those harms. So, and each assembly gets to decide what they want to focus on. So that's about what knowledge have you got in the participants, what's the passion, where's the real issue that needs to be addressed. And I see that happening through action groups. So, form a committee and start looking at chemtrails, for example. So we've got an airport in our area. We know that the planes are being loaded with the chemicals in that airport. Righto, let's go and gather all the proof. Then we walk in and we get the guy who drives the truck that's bringing the chemicals into the airport. And we say, here you go, mate, you're served. The guy that's putting them onto the plane, the guy that's flying the plane. If the people who are doing the harm suddenly realise that they are not protected by statute, then they're going to have a bit of a think about what the actions that they're taking. A challenge is we know that there are people that are doing that. There's a wonderful video out there at the moment of a woman who's gone into an airport and she's talking to the guys that are flying the plane. They know what they're doing. It's not that they don't know, it's that they don't know that there's an alternative. They don't think they have any option other than just do as I'm told. That's what the assemblies are about, showing people that there's an alternative. The policy enforcers, they don't know they've got an alternative. They don't know they have the option to actually say no to an immoral order. Well, they've never been told. It's if we tell you to do something, we say put the black UN uniform on and go and put the boot into somebody. Well, okay, that's my job. I'll go and do it. They don't know there's an alternative. So the assemblies will bring forward that knowledge. So the short to medium term is about putting an end to the harms that are being caused. Longer term, it becomes a much bigger picture. This, in my mind, there's not a shadow of doubt that we've won this. It's just a matter of, well, how long is it going to take for us to unify and focus in a way that actually prevents or puts a stop to the tyranny. And at the moment, we're divided and conquered. Again, talking about
by design. By design.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. What happened in Canberra was a great example of that. So there were 1 to 3 million people there. They turned up, they were unified in purpose. They absolutely knew what they wanted to achieve when they went there. They wanted to put a stop to the tyranny. And what happened, besides the actions the government took, was that you then had people turn up like Bosey, and he's prancing about and he's gathering anyone that would listen to him and he's dragging them off into the corner and he's pulled them aside. He's pulled them out of that unified approach that the people had because he's offering to be a leader. Come and vote for me and we'll end the tyranny. You cannot vote your way out of tyranny. You have people like Hoodie turns up. Now, whether Hoodie's whether it's intended or otherwise, what he's done is the same. He's gathered a whole heap of people behind him and they've gone wandering off and met with some politician that's made promises, and it's all divide and conquer. And we've got to stop relying on leaders. What we have to do is, you mentioned it, self-govern. So the first thing we have to do is we've got to say, well, I know who I am. I know the difference between right and wrong. I'm no longer going to do what's wrong. And once we have the strength through knowing who we are, of what we will accept and what we won't accept, then we come together, we assemble. And by assembling, we express the will of the people. And we then know how to take this forward. And it's not for Darren to tell anybody what action they should take. It's whatever the people want. What do you want the world to look like? Well, that's up to the people. The people have to come together and express their will and then take action. And again, with the assemblies, that part of the structure that is so successful here is we elect people into offices. So if we want to stop the sexualisation of children in the schools, we elect someone into an office that's charged with doing that. That man or woman has the authority of the people because they were put there by election by the people. And then they're given a project to go and implement, which might be go into the schools, look the principal in the eye and say, here's a list of all of the activities that are happening here that are causing harms. And here is all of the proof that those activities cause harm. You give pornographic materials to a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old. Here's the proof that that has long-term effect. And if it happens after today, if you don't remove those books from the shelves and you stop teaching that rubbish to those kids, we're going to drag you into a court of law. And you will be, the people who live around you that know your character are the ones that are going to sit there and hear the proof and the evidence, and they're going to decide what to do with you. And there is no higher law in the land. So it's the combination of having an office that's been elected that has the express will of the people behind them, and a project that has the express will of the people behind it is what will make this successful. But coming back to my opening statement on the assemblies, and it relies on us having a critical mass. And I don't know what those numbers are. But clearly, if you elect someone into an office, say a sheriff, you elect a sheriff with 25 or 50 votes, by law, they would be the highest law officer in that locality. But we don't have law at the moment. Only the people can bring law forward. So we're not going to get very far with someone who's been elected into an office with 25 or 50 votes. But if your local assembly has got 1,000 electors, and you have an elected office of education walking into a school with 1,000, the will of 1,000 people behind them, and we have a proposal that's been put forward that's got the will of 1,000 people behind it, it's going to have a lot more strength. And progressively, so at the moment, it's very important for people to go through and do the paperwork to correct their status, to cancel all the current agreements that they have with the legacy system. It's important that they recognise what that paperwork is doing for them, how it can be used to stand in their truth. But it's important to do that because unless you correct your status, you're still an Australian citizen. And by definition, that means you have an allegiance to the corporation that owns you. We can't have people who have an allegiance to another country, and it really is another country. It's in a different jurisdiction, making decisions for our country. That would be interfering in an election of another country. So we've got to be very careful with that stuff. That's why the paperwork's so important. But eventually, that won't matter. When we have enough of us. And I missed saying that before, but that was the positive out of what happened in Canberra, was that 1 to 3 million people were cranky enough to go to Canberra. And there would have been twice that many at least, and probably 3 or 4 times as many as that stayed home.
Yep.
So we are enough. We have enough of us. We just don't have the unity yet. And I see the role of the assemblies is about creating that vision of how we take this forward. And people will start to recognise that this is what we've got to do. It's not that we need everyone to reconvene. We do need people still playing in statutes and attacking them using their own rules, because it's a big bear and we've got to poke it from every side. Same with the common law people, they're doing some absolutely wonderful work and they're a thorn in the side to the system. We encourage them to keep going. We want some of them to come and help us build our jural assembly as well, of course, but we've got to poke this bear from every angle. And there are people who are absolutely convinced that you can vote your way out as well, and they're standing for Parliament and doing whatever they need to do. That's wonderful. And again, keep poking, keep bringing truth forward. We don't need everybody, but we do need unity and we need alignment. We've got to stop throwing rocks at each other and start throwing rocks at the common enemy.
I agree. I resonate with so much that you say. And it's been a bit of a wild journey, and the indoctrination is really, really deep. And we can see that the education and re-education or uneducation, the unlearning really needs to happen. So I've got one final point that I want to bring up, and that's the fact that we can learn so much from what the Americans are doing. They're really, leading the charge here, and that's amazing to see. So what do you think Terras Australis Assemblies can learn from the American government resurgence project? And that's
Yeah.
really my final main question.
All right, cool. So the Resurgence Project is an outreach project. It's about, well, it's got a couple of wonderful things that I think we can learn from. One is they have a clearly stated end game. And so their end game, and it probably should be ours as well, but we need to decide that as a committee, as a group. But our end game, or their end game, is to get to the point where the legacy system willingly hands the authority back to the people, back to the assemblies. And clearly at the moment, there's lots of reasons why the system would not want to do that. And not the least of that is that they're going to be held to account for the harms that they've caused. So the first thing we can and will learn from the Resurgence Project is that we need to know where we're going, what our objective is. And then our actions collectively will align to that. But the other is the outreach program part of it. So it's, the Resurgence Project is about getting the message to the people, helping the people to see what the assembly movement is doing and why it's the solution. And it's a big project. There's a lot in it. It's very well organised. And it's absolutely something that we need to get on board with. We have a different starting point to the Americans. So the Americans actually have a place to go back to. 1776 makes good sense. It's when they were made an independent country. They got rid of the king. They were able to establish their own systems of law and all these sorts of things. And they genuinely self-governed for probably 6 years. And then they were usurped. So one of the learnings from that for us is that unless people are actively engaged in the governance of their country and their localities, that could happen again. So we need to be mindful of that. Each of us, if we want to be free, we have to put the effort in. We are duty bound to self-govern, to be actively involved in the governance and the decisions that our assemblies are making. I got a little bit off track there, but the Resurgence Project is really an outreach project, and we can learn from the initiatives that they are implementing. And some of them are really simple things, simple to organise, probably more challenging to do. But creating posters that can be put on trees and on lamp posts and all these sorts of things. Postcards that can be mailed out or letterbox dropped to bring attention to everybody, not just those that are awake in the community, but to everybody. There's a lot of stuff happening at the moment around this country where I see that would work in different localities. So an example of that is on the Gold Coast. We don't currently have a local assembly on the Gold Coast, but we've got quite a number of reconveyed state nationals there. Apparently the Gold Coast City Council has decided that they own the views. And if you've got a high rise there, you have to start paying tax on your view of the water. We're looking over their jurisdiction and have to pay for that privilege. So clearly everybody is cranky about that. Whether they've got even any inkling of what's going on in the world, they might be a jab to the hilt, but they're still cranky with the council. So there's an opportunity there for us to galvanise those people and help them to see, come together, form an assembly, express your will, stop playing inside the bucket. And at the moment, we're not structured to do that. We need to spend a bit of time looking at the Resurgence Project and how we can utilise the learnings from that to help us attack some of those kinds of issues or to galvanise people on the back of some of those issues. So a little bit of a clunky answer, but yeah, it's a wonderful project. There's an awful lot in it, and we'd be nuts not to learn from that and implement something here.
Absolutely would agree with that. And so thanks for sharing your perspectives and your vantage point. So do you have one final message? If there's someone that's listening to you right now and they're just starting this journey and just discovering what self-governance is, do you have any advice for that person? What could they do right now to help participate or to help get involved?
Yeah, wonderful question again. I think the first thing we've got to recognize is the system wants to keep us apart. It wants us using these kinds of platforms. To me, the most important thing we can be doing at a local level today is bringing people together, getting them in a room, feeling the heart energy, focusing on the positives. There's way too much time spent, you know, the story or the saying, where attention goes, energy flows. And the system that we've been brought up in is harvesting our energy. That's its purpose. It's harvesting our lives, our output, and our energy. We've got to stop giving it our energy. We've got to stop giving it our attention. And they deliberately throw things at us to create fear. And we lap it up. We love it. We love being in fear. So for somebody who's through that process already, they know what's going on. That's one of the challenges with what we're doing. You know, you sort of have to do the rounds first. You have to go and play in statutes and go and look at common law and think you can vote your way out and whatever else, or do what I do and just turn your back on it and get slapped. But you sort of have to do that before what we are doing with the assemblies makes a whole lot of sense, I think. So again, it's not, we don't need everybody, we need people who are ready. So I'm answering the question from the perspective of someone who's done that and they recognize this is the way we need to do it. So it's, to me, stop spreading fear, stop focusing on the fear. Yeah, be aware of what's happening around you, but don't give it any energy. And then get people together, get in a room and start talking about what do we got to do to fix this and how do we bring more people in. Share the love.
Absolutely agree. And we love that about you. You're so grounded and calm. And we love the fact that you grace us with your energy, with all of the things that you create. You're constantly collaborating and bringing people together and expanding our perspectives. And you do it with such graciousness. And we really appreciate everything that you do, Darren. It's we would not have gained the momentum that we have in Queensland without you there. And I know there's a team around you, but sometimes it's important to recognise how far we've come, and you've been there every step of the way. So we absolutely appreciate you. And I can speak from local assemblies. We're excited about the future that we're creating. So thank you very much.
It's wonderful, Teresa. Thank you. And I am more for the experience and for being able to share it with people like yourself. So thank you.
No worries.
Somehow we
And
can
we're done.
recording off, can we?
And we're done.